In the first video of this series, we showed you how to make a survival staff from parts at a hardware store that would cost you under $30. In the second video, we showed you how to use the staff for various bushcraft and survival needs. In this final episode, we're taking you camping with us to the South Umpqua Falls, where we'll show you the items inside the staff and how they're used. Welcome everybody to our camp out on the South Umpqua Falls. We figured we'd bring you guys out here to show you what's inside the survival staff.
There's a lot of storage space in here, and actually the first thing I'll talk about is this cap. We were talking about this in the previous video. We got these really cool caps from a rum bottle of all places, and it's got a compass on it. We showed you how you could use that as an actual compass to help you find your direction. But underneath it, I glued a button compass. And so now that cap helps that button compass sit really flat when you need to take a reading. And it's just hidden right there out of the way.
Let's take a look at the first thing I have stored in my staff. First thing I'll find is a scroll. Ooh, what could be on the scroll? Well, actually, the scroll in and of itself is a storage device. When you unravel the scroll, it's got information in here about various traps, how to make a shelter, various knots that you might need in a survival situation. It goes over the priorities of survival, being shelter, water, food. Even gives you some tips on how you might be able to purify water and start a fire with a bow drill. But inside of it, I've got a couple of things. For instance, a ferro rod to make fire lighting easy. That way you don't have to worry about making a bow. There's even inside here, super glue.
Crazy.
Now, the thing about super glue, originally it was developed to use as emergency sutures on the battlefield. Now, you don't want to get the chemical inside your wound. That's why they stopped using it. But if you pinch the wound closed and you super glue over the top of it, it'll hold the wound together pretty well. And then also inside there is this teeny tiny knife that has a pair of scissors, a small knife blade that may not be good for whittling, but could be good for skinning and gutting small animals or fish, and a file that's not only good for taking care of your nails, but could also be used to help sharpen some of your other knives.
Now for my multi-tool, I found this really cool. It's a Leatherman Micra, and it's got all these tools in it. We'll show a close-up version of it, but starting with scissors right there. And a lot of times scissors can be so important when you need to cut stuff. Tweezers, an awl, knife, all kinds of useful tools just right here in this compact little piece that fits right inside the staff. The next thing I have in my staff is an emergency light, and at this point it's a glow stick, which to me was kind of important. I thought about putting a flashlight in here. There's flashlights that you can buy that would fit in here, but I felt, especially if I'm walking under a bunch of stress and this is getting banged around a lot, how long would the bulb last? Besides that, it needs batteries, so you don't want to store the batteries outside the flashlight because that's just taking up more space. Best place would have the battery inside the flashlight. But the thing is, if I don't ever use it, there's problems with corrosion and things like that. So I felt emergency situation, if I needed a signal, I could tie this on the end of the string and swing it around and it makes a bunch of light. I can use it to also help me navigate and find things when it's dark. So a little glow stick can be very useful.
The next thing I have are these little storage tubes that conveniently fit inside, but they were a little too small. One, I've got a little fishing kit with some bobbers and some weights and some hooks and that kind of thing in it. But then because it was so thin, what I did is I wrapped a bunch of fishing line. I'd say there's probably about 500 feet of fishing line wrapped up on the outside of that, just to take up more bulk. And then I put it all together with tape so it wouldn't just randomly unravel on me. The other storage tube I have in here is, in essence, a minor first aid kit. It's got some pain medication in there, some acetaminophen and ibuprofen. Things like that expire, so I'd recommend on the duct tape that I have on the outside of this, you would just write down the expiration date. That's not all that duct tape is used for, though. It could also be used for repairing clothing or minor repairs to gear. It could also be used for repairing you as a makeshift band-aid. Then we found, because of course PVC can be like a Russian nesting doll, I've got PVC inside of PVC. I've got 2 sets of these. One set inside has a multi-tool in it. It was one that had just broken and fallen apart, and I figured out that it fit in these tiny Schedule 40 PVC tubes perfectly. The first tube has a medium-sized knife with a screwdriver and a file. The second tube has a serrated knife and a saw, along with 2 types of screwdrivers and a bottle opener or can opener. I made the lanyards on the tool long enough that I could wrap them around a couple of fingers and use the lanyard itself as a handle. I also designed the lanyard with a slip knot and a stop knot. That way you could remove the lanyard and attach it to one of the PVC as a handle. Now, outside of it being used as storage for a multi-tool, it's got special drilling in it to where if you put the 2 ends together, you've got a convenient hole. That can be used for making a deadfall trap. On the other end is carved an L7 notch, which can be used for making various spring traps for catching small animals or even fish. You'll need 1 line to attach to the spring pole and to the first part of the trigger. Halfway down this line, I like to use a trucker hitch so I can adjust the amount of tension on the spring pole. The other half of the trigger is attached by a line to a stake. This allows a straight line of tension to the spring pole, making it easier to set the trap. The first trigger will need a separate line that leads out to a loop which will catch your prey. The other one of these I have in here has got a Mylar blanket. I'm not going to unfold the Mylar blanket because they're vacuum sealed, and once you get them unfolded, good luck getting them back to being small again. But I will show you an example of how you might use that as a shelter. A common way to make a shelter with a Mylar blanket is by using a simple lean-to or A-frame configuration. By far the easiest, though, is to simply wear the blanket like a medieval cloak. If you have a small candle to burn, that can even provide you some heat. That's a citronella candle, it'll definitely keep the mosquitoes away. I even wrap the middle with 25 feet of braided speaker wire. This speaker wire can be unbraided and used for putting together your shelter or even making traps. Now at the very end of it is this metal cap that we talked about. It's used mainly for being able to strike against the ground. It can be used for self-defense, but the inside of it is actually hollow. So what I've got coiled up inside there is a little wire saw. Now a lot of people say that wire saws are useless, and for the most part you're right, but if you use it in the right way, it could actually be very handy and it won't break on you. Let me show you how to do that. The easiest way to use a wire saw is to use it as the string for a bow. You'll need to find a springy branch and trim off all the excess branches. Split each end of the bow to hold your wire. One important feature on a wire saw is that you have a swivel on each end. This will keep it from crimping and breaking if it gets coiled up. Finally, I'll use the can opener to help open up the split to fit the wire in. Pull one swivel to make the wire tight while you bend the bow to make it tense. Once you slip the wire through the final notch, you'll have a completed bow saw. The different types of items you can fit in your staff is endless. It just depends on your level of survival training. If you can think of anything we didn't talk about, leave a comment down below. Thanks for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, like it, and make sure to share that with a friend. Click the subscribe button and then hit that notification bell so you can catch our next exciting video.